Howdy, folks. Woody Walls from NeedCoffee.com here. Back again on the couch for another Stayhomer review. Here's how it works for the uninitiated. I have just not left the cinema. I used to do that, and I will do that again someday. But for right now, I have watched films from the comfort of my couch, mostly to annoy directors. And I have finished watching the film, and just like I used to get in my car and drive home to tell you about the film that I'd just seen, I'm already home. So we've skipped a step. It's like working from home, except for, missing the commute, which was part of the work. Anyway, it gets complicated. Regardless, so I'm here, and we're here today to talk about Eternals. Now, Eternals, synopsis. So this is Marvel, right? And we've been introduced to the Celestials, okay? They appeared, I honestly don't even remember if they've been named, but we've seen them in like a holographic flashback in Guardians, and one of the Guardians. And also we've hung out in one of their skulls, also in Guardians, and also other films after that. So we've seen them before, even if I can't remember if we knew that they were called Celestials. So the Celestials basically had a problem in the form of deviants, who were, in the movies, basically a bunch of rainbowy, morphy kind of tentacly aliens that are like super predators. And so the Celestials created the Eternals, who look human and are very long-lived and powerful, to combat the deviants and to, make the world safe for human beings and, democracy and pizza and whatever else. And basically, this film sort of sets up the Eternals and what they've been doing the entire time they've been here for, like, I think they said at one point 1,500 years. So where have they been this whole time? What have they been doing? And why, most importantly, why did they not show up and help out with the whole Thanos thing? Because that was a bit of a kerfuffle. And that's it. That's basically your synopsis. You've set up the confrontation, and it just goes from there. And the only other thing I'd like to mention at this point is that Celestials, Deviants, and Eternals, these potentially could be gang names from the remake of The Warriors. Anyway, that just occurred to me. I don't know where it came from. So, right. This is, from a certain angle, one of the most ambitious films that Marvel has done. And I don't necessarily mean from the standpoint of, time scale, sure, perhaps. But mostly from the standpoint of the fact that they introduced 10 characters who are part of the team that is the title. Now that's 10 characters, not counting like Dane Whitman and anybody else that showed up. But the 10 main characters. And that's a lot to introduce. That's so many to introduce in a film, you'd think for a second it might have been a DC movie. But no, because it's not as dark. Because, if you think about it, there's been more characters, obviously. Infinity War and Endgame each had in them about 260 speaking roles. Each, right? And I think the closest they've come to introducing this many characters as part of a team is the original Guardians, because that was, 5? So, so this is 10 characters with personalities, and they're all just sort of there. And so that to me was the most daunting bit of it, despite the fact of what is the whole Thanos thing? And the only thing that you run into, which if depending on how many more films that go back and talk about things pre-blip, um, that go like through blip, if that makes any sense. Like if you were to go back and do another Captain America World War II film, which I would not be sad about, by the way. I know Kevin Feige watches these, so I'm just putting that out there. If you need to give Chris Evans more money, which I think, I speak for most decent human beings when we'd love Chris Evans to have more money, regardless of the role. Um, but yeah, if you like, Captain Marvel, which took place, before most of the things that we'd seen to that point that weren't in World War II in the MCU, the big question was, well, where the heck has she been? And so you have to have this, well, where the heck have they been? And what I find with a lot of these films is that the thing I'm concerned about the most turns out to be kind of like a nothing burger. It's just handled. Um, and like for example, the what was it? In both of the Hulk movies that came out at the time, the Ang Lee Hulk even, I was most concerned about the CG Hulk, the CG-ness of the Hulk. He looked great. I mean, I'm sure if you compared him then to now, it would be lacking, but for the time, he looked great. I didn't realize I had to worry about everything else in the film. Um, but so it's taken care of almost with an Armageddon line. And by that I mean, there's a great line in Armageddon where the question I've mentioned this before, the question in the audience's mind is, there's a giant rock coming at the earth, why don't we just blow it up? And so someone actually says that in the movie, why don't we just blow it up? And Billy Bob Thornton says, we can't, it's too big. Now, whether or not that scientifically makes any sense, they've basically established that in this universe, it's too big, you can't blow it up. So it's that sort of thing, which when they present it the way they do in the film, I bought it. I mean, I think it makes sense. And it's very simple. Um, so that, I mean, I kind of wasn't worried about it because for the most part, unless it's a second Spider-Man film, Marvel seems to have their act together. So I mean, that was the most of my worries, which, wasn't very much to begin with. Um, the bit that threw me, and then we'll talk about the good stuff, because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about, in my opinion. The bit that threw me was, we are sort of thrown into it. And we're thrown into it with watching 10 characters basically launch into action with their various powers. And my knowledge of the Eternals from the comic books is basically what I gleaned from, because I haven't read a lot of Eternals comics, which is a shame, I know. Because even Neil wrote one, and I still haven't had a chance to read it, which is bad. But I mostly get my Eternal knowledge from the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, which, when it came out, that was a dream come true. And so most of the characters I recognized in their comic book gear. And so, like, for example, this looks nothing like Salma Hayek, which is fine, but I really wasn't sure when we started from, well, who are you? And what do you do? And why does that work that way? And what is happening? So there was some initial confusion. The good news is, because you have a really great cast, and they've written, well, not the cast, but the writers have written for the cast, really well fleshed out characters. And first of all, so they all have distinct personalities, and they come to the fore relatively quickly. They establish who they are relatively quickly. It was just the very beginning where I was at first taken aback by, I felt like did I walk into my den after, not only missing the previews but the first 20 minutes? I don't know. but they very quickly rectified that situation. Um, and it was written so that it was not, I'll put it this way, it would be very easy to have the characters all get together in harmony. You know, they could teach the world to buy the world a Coke and keep it company, teach the world to sing, whatever it goes. Uh, but it doesn't necessarily play out like that. And when you consider that they are pretty much a family and have been around each other off and on for like 1,500 years. I mean, think about certain members of your family that if it's hard to be around them, like at Thanksgiving and Christmas or whatever holidays you celebrate, Arbor Day, I don't know. Rock on with your bad self. But I'm just saying, that there are certain family members that just really annoy you. So it's not going to be harmony. It's not going to be harmonious. And this whole setup and the ability to carry the film, despite having so many characters that you're just thrown into knowing, would not have worked without the cast that they picked and without the script as it was written. So that is very pleasing. And speaking of the cast, I allowed myself to take notes because there's 10 characters, and I just knew I was going to forget a name or screw up a name like I usually do. So, quick highlights here. Kumail, and I hope I'm saying this right, Kumail Nanjiani, who's Kingo, great. I love that he was the conscience of the group, and I love, and this was in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, I love that he goes to Bollywood. And if you haven't seen any Bollywood films, for the love of God, see some Bollywood films. They're amazing. Brian Tyree Henry, who is Fastos. First of all, the tormented and frustrated inventor and genius, very nice. And lovely character work with him. And, Brian, I'm sorry, but you're always going to be Miles Morales' dad. He's the voice of Miles Morales' dad. Even when he showed up in that Godzilla movie, I was like, oh, it's Miles Morales' dad. I mean, there are worse fates. I love Don Lee as Gilgamesh. And in fact, I have tweeted to Kevin Feige, who I know watches these, that he should have his own cooking show in character on Disney+. And if you look in your hearts, I'm right. Angelina Jolie as Thena. Angelina Jolie, I think, at least from what I can tell, doesn't get all the props for being a great actor like she is. Because she sort of like goes at roles that don't need 110%, even at 110%. I mean, she was a much better Lara Croft than either of her two movies, deserved. And she was a great Maleficent. And she was a better Maleficent than those movies deserved. So, it just seems to be a thing. But her being a great warrior is fantastic. Because she is very ferocious, and with the vulnerability that they give the character, it's just a nice touch. And I just want to give a special shout out to Harish Patel, who played Kaman, and he I don't want to get into too much about it because I don't want to spoil it, but he's just delightful. So I think it's Karun. God, I can't even read my own writing. Anyway, so great cast. And they had a lot to do considering the time scale that they were covering, and what they were trying to get done in the film. And I think the one other major thing that I would bring to the fore here is the same thing that I said about Black Widow, and I think this might be the case with a lot of Marvel stuff going forward, because it's not necessarily like Shang-Chi. I did not go, man, that really should have been like a 6-part miniseries on Disney Plus. But Black Widow, I thought it could have used the room to breathe, and the same thing here. I think even though they did a great job of giving the characters enough space to work in, it would have been better done, you know, as a series. But I will say, as a feature film, and with the restrictions that that entails, because I don't even know if they could do a series of Eternals. I mean, I still don't know how places like Disney Plus make money. And don't comment that they have subscription fees. I know that. I just don't understand how they have the, with all that, even with that, how they have the budget to do the stuff that they do and how they actually make a profit. I don't know. But for all I know, it's all a write-off to get people to go to the theme parks. I have no clue. Anyway, the point being is that with the restrictions in place, with the limitations that a feature film brings you, which there are some, I think this is the best Eternals feature film that you could do. And I think, I think what they've set up, there's no telling where it's going to go from here. I don't know if we're going to have an Eternals 2, Eternal Harder, or whatever. I don't know. But I'm sure they will show up somewhere. And with the stuff that they've set up at the end, because of course there's 15 post credits scenes. It's going to be interesting to see where that stuff shows up next. And what I will say this, what I like about Phase 4 is when we had the original MCU coming together, it became clear very early on. Once Thanos showed up, you were like, we're going to Infinity Gauntlet. Holy God. Because, back then, who knew you could do such a thing? Here, we're just trucking along, and I have no idea, who's going to be, the big bad coming up. I know certain people have been mentioned, but anyway, so should you see it? Yes, it's on Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus, you should watch it, obviously. If it is safe for you to see it on the biggest screen possible, please do so, because I think that adds to it. But yes, I think it should be seen. And if you're a Marvel person, you probably have already seen it at least once. I'm late to the game, as always. Cup-wise. Okay. I think it is, and that's my dog snoring. And I think it is probably a strong 3.5 out of 5. And just to be clear, that is a positive review. I've had some people give me a hard time for giving stuff 3 and 3.5. That's a positive review. So I enjoyed it. It's probably not going to be something I go back to all the time, like certain other Marvel films, but I did enjoy it, and I will certainly watch it again. It's did I mention also it's gorgeous to look at? Because gorgeous to look at. So anyway, there you have it. Eternals, another Stayhomer review in the can, so to speak. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy these things, we try to put them up as often as we can. I can't wait to actually go back to the cinema, because I'm here on the couch for some strange reason. I feel the need to put things up here, and I don't know where that came from. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Again, I already said that. If you enjoy what you're seeing and you would like to see more, go to needcoffee.com. And if you would like to support us for the stuff that it takes to do this, like what it takes to pay for the things to watch and the thing that I'm recording with and to keep the lights on and whatever else, you can go to, and this is not a paid ad as far as I know, because I haven't been paid to say this up front. It's an FTC thing. I don't understand this at all. Needcoffee.com/Amazon. If you hang on to that link and you're going to shop at Amazon, do so using that link, and you go to Amazon like you just went to Amazon, because you did. And whatever you purchase during your sojourn at Amazon, we get kickbacks for it. Doesn't matter how big, doesn't matter how small, it all adds up and it all helps. And I can see you guys doing it, and I love you for it. So yeah. So thanks so much for watching. I'm saying that for a third time, and we'll see you next time from the couch for the Stayhomer reviews. Bye. Okay, coda time, and I got a spoiler thing. So if you haven't seen the film, go away now. Shoo, go away. All right, you've seen it? Okay, so here's my thing. Somebody posted a picture of the stone celestial at the end sticking out of the ocean, saying, wonder how the MCU is going to handle this. And my take on it is that basically, if they do not, because Moon Knight's next, right? If they do not at least make mention in Moon Knight that the giant stone celestial has been turned into a theme park slash resort, if that hasn't happened, I'm just going to be really disappointed, because think about it. It's a no-brainer. And that should be its own series.